Hello everyone, happy y'all made it out here today. We are Porterfield Run Farm. We are a small farm located here in Boones Mill, Virginia. And I'm going to go ahead and just tell you kind of where we came from and how things worked out. We started market gardening in 2018, but that was not the very beginning of our ideas with market gardening. It actually started out around the year 2010. And we had this garden right here. That was our first attempt at it. We thought it was a beautiful situation. We're like, oh, look at how beautiful everything is, as you can see here. Got a nice little picture here of a rainbow sprinkler going. We call it the rainbow sprinkler anyway. You'll hear some of our weird terminology as well as we go through with this. And we thought we were doing great. We had tomatoes, big old tomatoes staked up, just wonderful stuff. Had ourselves a fence around here to keep groundhogs and things out. Oops, sorry about that. We had some peppers, cucumbers, squash, zucchini, all kinds of different things. See, there's some of the squash right there. And a look at some of our harvest there. So we were getting some food off of the garden. We were getting some, but there was a small little problem here. I don't know if you guys can actually see what we were encountering, but you see all the weeds that are all through here? There were weeds all over the place. So what was happening is that we were spending all of our time out there weeding. We were also using what's called a rotospader, a front tine tiller. And what was happening is I was having to run this in between the rows quite consistently to alleviate those weeds. And I also figured at that point in time, what am I doing to the roots on these plants exactly like this, like the green beans? Am I tearing up the roots, taking the rototiller that far into the ground? Is that what's happening? Also, as you can see, after we water, you can't really till that. It's all wet, everything clumps up, as y'all may or may not know. Then you have a real big mess on your hands with the good old red clay we have around here. And there's our dog, she's even going, what? What are y'all doing? But as we get closer here, you can see we have nasty little clumps of dirt there, all these weeds, and even more problems. See how the soil is all cracking up? Yeah. I could not find a better picture of this, but this is the best one I could find. So that was always a constant issue, fighting those particular situations there. And even a closer look at it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just.
Yeah.
So, what we did is we gave up on that. We gave up on it because of how much energy I was putting into that tiller. We were not getting anywhere near that much produce out of the garden. It was just a complete waste. I said, we're done, we're stopping, so we quit. That was quite a few years ago. I think we gardened for a couple years there, so about 2 years, around 2011-ish, we were done. Well, we had our second child and we had to find another place to live because we needed another bedroom. We only had a 2-bedroom house, we were ready to have another child, so we needed a 3-bedroom house. So that's what we did. We moved into a spot here in Boones Mill. Actually, believe it or not, this was actually a market, the property owner of this property was a market gardener previous to us as well. He had unfortunately passed away about 2 years before we acquired the property. So we'll fast forward back here. This is the beginning. So what we decided to do here, let me go back into that just a little bit more, my apologies. So my wife wanted me to put in raised beds on this property that we have, and I was highly against it. Here I am thinking, I'm gonna do all this woodworking all the time to replace these raised beds. They're just gonna rot away. I'm going to replace them every 2 years. Not really the case. I've learned more since then that you can actually do things to your raised beds and make them last for a long time. You can actually burn them and whatnot really good and they can last up to 50 years. But I didn't know that back then, still learning every day. So I came across this video on another YouTube channel, which was the Swedish Homestead. And they were talking about this fellow named Paul Gauchi with the Back to Eden garden. Have you all ever heard of the Back to Eden garden method? Never have? Okay, and very interesting. Well, it's free on YouTube right now. You can watch it. It's called the Back to Eden Garden movie. So I went ahead and watched that. It was a slow day at work on a Friday, so I went ahead and watched that. We were supposed to install these raised beds on Saturday or Sunday. So it was right at the last minute when I came across this information. So I watched this 2-hour-long video, and I see that they're using compost and wood chips and other things like that to establish the garden. So I said, interesting. We have wood chips that Asplund just chipped up right up, is actually right over here. You can't see it quite in the shot for the power line that comes directly over top of our house. And I was like, well, we have that. And then our neighbors Unfortunately, another neighbor passed away and there was a lot of compost that was in that building. Well, the neighbors that had reacquired that place had taken their skid steer and pulled all that out into the field and left it sitting there. I was like, we've got everything we need to do this. So that following Sunday, we established the garden. So as you can see here, we have some newspaper down. Let me show you, well, let's go into this. So this is about a 15 by 20 area. Went ahead and put the newspaper down as what we had at that point in time, about 3 inches of that compost and about 4 inches of wood chips. And these wood chips on this particular situation happen to be pine. Pine is about my favorite because it decomposes quickly, but you can use pretty much anything. And with this, I'm not telling you how to do it. This is just our way of doing it. Don't take this as you should go home and do it. Take some advice from this if you want to. I wanted to say that part earlier, my apologies. So, there we are, we're starting to grow some things. We have some things planted in here. And our first little thing, some onion bulbs, some other things. Actually, the wood chip pile was right back in there, actually. You can still see some of them there. So anyway, and then here it is a little bit later on. Green beans are coming up pretty nice. The onions are up, as you can see. Things are looking pretty good. Then we fast forward a little bit more. Things really started to do well. There is squash back here. It's very hard to see in this photo, but it was, this may not be exactly far enough in the grow. Let me see here. Yep, so that particular squash right there, as time progressed, it was about this tall. Usually when we grow squash, it would be about this tall. So we were immediately seeing results. And at this point in time, I said, you know what? To my wife, this might actually work. We may be able to do the market gardening now. We may have found a method that'll work for us. So that's when we started thinking about different things, and that's when Porterfield Run Farm started to exist. So here's how we install the garden. As you can see, here's the original garden. So we went ahead and started to install it. So right here we have just basically a weed barrier. This is more of the cheaper version here. It's not really the expensive version. I would recommend doing the expensive stuff if you can. Then we put down construction documents. I was in the construction industry and had access to a lot of those documents. So I said, this is gonna be easier than newspaper. You know, newspaper's about this big, construction documents are about that big. So we mowed this down about as far as we could get it, put the newspaper down, excuse me, the paper down at this point in time. And then we started applying compost to this. Well, this is actually topsoil. In this situation, we use what we can get. Sometimes it's compost, sometimes it's topsoil, it just depends. So we put that down about 3 inches thick, which is pretty much industry standard. A yard is 3 inches thick, 1 yard by 3 inches. So that kind of helps you calculate out your area if you need to. Let me see here, this should play somehow or another. So, did a time lapse of this one, which is handy. And this is actually on the Porterfield Run Farm YouTube channel. It's on the channel trailer if you were to click on our site. You may have already seen this, but just wanted to show it to you again. So that's kind of how we did it. I think we didn't have enough wood chips at this point in time. So we're just spreading all this out and then we come back with wood chips later on. But as you can see, there's just kind of a bit of the process. It is interesting, the kids are quite a bit smaller there than what they are now.
They're busy though.
That's it. And thankfully, we were able to borrow my mother's tractor. This is a little Kubota to help move this stuff around, so it was really nice. So that's kind of how it went. And that's where it all came from on that aspect. Let me see here. So there's another picture of the garden. This is when we're still applying the wood chips. You can see we've made it around through here with wood chips and still had to get some more. But we did eventually make it to that point. Yep, so as you can see, there it is. One thing we did learn here as well is that when you're just planting in wood chips, you really can't see what you're doing after you plant it. So we'd have to take like a little brick or a little stake or something, just trying to mark out where things are planted so we weren't stepping all over top of them. And then here's an example of that. As you all maybe saw earlier, the garden's quite a bit bigger now. It has been extended further uphill from here, and there's another garden down in here as well. So it's kind of a look at how things have progressed over time.